Halo, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome back with me, Mr. Sams, for all our students in SMK Swasta Teruna Kota Padang Sidimpuan. Well, actually, for all my students, exactly this is our last videos, our last materi in this semester. It means that I would like to ask you to review our videos about our listening for this 1 year to make you our for your prepares to the next examinations. I mean in your last examination. So this means I say you need to watch more about all of our videos in this semester for your materials in the next examinations. Well, in this video, I will ask you to talking about a poem. It means we're talking about literature. In the last video, we have speaks about a narrative text and also about the kinds of a text. So in this video, uh, the kinds of the narrative text that what we will have to talk about is about a poem. So in this video, we're talking about poem because this is our material for this last semester. Uh, just frankly, to all of my students, talking about poem is not so easy for the beginner of our students like you because uh, you are in the beginner of uh, learning English. It means that you don't know exactly how far is learning about English and how far is, for example, how far to translate words in English words. So uh, in this narrative text, we're talking about a poem. Truly, this is very hard for you because uh, the vocabulary that used in a narrative text is a very much using an ambiguous words or synonyms words that unusual words that use in a narrative text. So uh, in this video, I ask you to watch this video because we are talking about poem and it's really uh, a little hardly for you to understand it. Well, what is a poem? You know, a poem is uh, words or a piece of words that writings in a piece of sentence maybe uh, uses imaginative words to share some ideas, emotions, or a story with the reader. A poem sometimes uh, use only one or two words in a sentence. Sometimes just use one words in the sentence. And it's why I said before that learning about poems is a little difficult for the beginners like you, even though you are in the third years of SMK Teruna Padang Sidimpuan, because talking about poems means that we are talking about literature, and literature is the part hardly of learning English. Okay, now poem, a piece of writing that uses imaginative words to share ideas, emotions, or a story with the readers. Next, and this is the kinds of poems. The ones there is X kinds of poems in the words. And the kinds of this poem is come from another countries. I means like Italy and France. They have the different kinds of poems that they use. So it's I means that learning about poems it's depend to the culture, okay, and it's depend to the character of the writer, okay. So this is the kinds of poems that we know as long as and up to date. Look, ode. Ode is one of kinds of poem. And what it is? Ode, ode is a lyric poem of moderate length. You have to know that ode is a moderate length. Okay, and the second is elegy. This is the second kind of poem. What's elegy? Elegy is a lyric of poems that mourns the dead. Okay, it mourns the dead. This is about elegy. So it seems that ascets poems. And the third is sonnet. What's sonnet? Sonnet is a lyric poem consisting of 14 lines. Okay, listens. Sonnets is a lyric poem that consisting of 14 lines, and elegy, we are not talking about lines, how many lines here, but it just uh, poor talking about the dead. And ode is a lyric poem, a moderate length. Okay, and then ballad. Ballad it has a musical rhythm. Ballad is musical rhythms. And then epic. What's epic's poem? Epic's poem is a long narrative poem. It's a long narrative poems. It's maybe more than 14, more than or 20 lines of the poems. Okay, so it's belongs to seems like belongs to the free forms. As usual, like the people write today. Okay, because right now many people they write the poems. They forget it's look like that they forget uh, the kinds of the poems or the style of the poems that has uh, the high intrinsic message what they want to say about. So the poems or a poetry in this now, uh, it seems that so very easy to understand. It, it not make us confuse exactly what the writers want to say by this poem. Okay, it's not seems like uh, the all kinds of poem. Okay, next, what kinds haiku? Haiku is unrhymed verse. It's unrhymed. Okay, and the next limerick. This is for the last kinds. Usually humorous and composed of 5 lines. It's okay. So you have to remember that every kinds of poems is it has a specific science. It has a specific way to say what they want to tell by the sentence. Okay, they have the different ways to talking about the aim of the poems. So this is there are 8 kinds of poems that here. So I'm sorry because we don't have enough time to talking about these kinds of poems one by one because it needs a little more times, maybe more than one day to talking about this all of kinds of poems. So this is just an introductions of poems. Okay, next, what is structures in a poem? Talking about structures in a poem, there are two meaning. The first one is talking about how to make a good poem, how to write a good poem, and the second is how to read or to analyze or to understandings about a poem. Okay, how to understandings about a poem. Well, uh, the structures in a poem is a line length. It shows the reader how it should be read. So the line length, uh, it maybe help us to more clearly to understand the sentence or to understand the poems by analyzing words by words of the sentences. Okay, this is what if the structures using by the line length. And if the structure of a poem that used is a stanza, you know, the group of lines are like paragraph in the prose, it's also more easier to understandings of us. If you want to analyzing or to write a poems by stanzas is more clearly and more easy. And the third is consistency. Okay. And this next slides we go for poem technique. And poem techniques, it means that the technique that we use for writing a poem. Okay, the poem technique is what we have to do or the steps that we want to do if we want to write a poem. Okay, and also we can use this technique to analyze things or to find the aim or to find a message of a poem, even though or however whatever about the poem, even the poem is the ode style or the sonnet style, we can use this technique to analyze for take some message from the poem. And also if you want to write a poem, this is the technique that we have to remember or we have to use, because without this technique, exactly, it is so difficult to write a good poem. Okay, what are the techniques? The first ones is about repetitions. Repetitions is very important for writing a poem. So what is repetitions? Repetition is a poem techniques or repeating different words or phrase used to draw a person's attention to a certain idea. So when you read a poem, maybe you usually to find some words writes in many times, maybe 4 times the writer writes one words in his or her poems more than one. Okay, maybe it could be 5 times for one words in their poems. So it what we call about repetitions. Okay, and then what techniques that we have to understand or we need to make a good poems. The next techniques is we need to know about similes and metaphors in a poem. Similes and metaphors in a poem. Okay, we need to know it because we are talking about words, talking about sentence. We are not talking about a paragraph. Okay, good. Similes. What is similes? Similes is compare. Sorry, I make a mistakes in writings when I type. So sorry. Similes is compare to concept. Remember what is simile? Similes is compare to concepts with. Okay, with I forgot about to type E here, like or as. This is the key. Similes compare to concepts with like or as. Example, he could swim like a fish. He could swim like a fish. Okay, this is what we use in this sentence. Okay, like. This is what we call like similes. Example of similes, the using of similes in a sentence or poem. And then metaphors. Okay, metaphor is difference with similes. Metaphor is compare to concepts without like or as. Similes is compare to concept with like or as, and metaphors compare to concepts without like or as. Look for example of sentence of poems. The stars were diamonds on the sky. The stars were diamonds on the sky. So means there is no words like or as in these sentences. So this is the difference metaphor and similes. Similes using with like or as, and metaphors without like or as in a sentence. So this is the difference when we using similes and metaphors in a sentence of poems. Okay. Next, alliterations. Talking about alliterations, it's the repetitions of the same sounds. Okay. Repetitions of the same sounds in two or more words in successions. So you have to make correctly about alliterations and repetitions. Okay, repetitions is the technique that use repeating different words. Okay, repeating different words or phrase. And alliteration is repetitions of the same sounds. The same sounds. Maybe A B A B. Okay, the first line is A, the second line is B, and the third line is A. Okay, you get it? It seems like learning puisi in bahasa Indonesia. There's the rhymes. Okay, yeah, and this is what we are talking about in English. Alliterations and repetitions have the difference. What are the difference? Repetition is repeating a different words or phrase. Again, repeating different words or phrase, and alliterations is repetitions of the same sound. Get it? Yeah. And begins rhyme in poem. What is the rhyme in poem? Rhyme is words are words that have the same ending sounds. Are words that have the same ending sounds. Like a sky. Okay, the sounds is I, and also the sky, lie, he lie in the sky. So this is lie and sky is have uh, the same ending sound. So it's what we call in rhyme in a poem. And stanzas are series of lines grouped together and separated by an empty line from other stanzas. Listens? Stanzas. What are stanzas? Stanzas are a series of lines grouped together and separated by an empty line from other stanza. Okay, empty line from other stanzas. So rhyme and stanzas is different. Rhyme is have the same ending sounds. Rhymes it's look like belong to about alliterations, because alliterations is repetitions of the same sounds in two or more words. Okay, this is alliterations, and rhyme is words that have the same ending sounds. So You don't need to confuse about the sounds, the using sounds, the same sounds in the poems. And also, when someone's uh, reads a poems, so you need to focus to listenings about the sounds. Okay, and then the others, what the other points that we need to know if you are learning about poem or poetry. Uh, the last years, what we are to talking about is poetry assumptions. My beloved students, learnings about poems or poetry, it means that sometimes if we want to say, if we want to tell something to other people or to send a message to other people, we can use it by a write. We can use by writing. Okay, and this is the point. What we need to know is poetry assumptions. What is the purpose of poems assumptions? The purpose is to make the readers of poetry or poems uh, often brings with them many related assumptions. Okay, what are they? The first one is a poems. The readers read a poems because to make the readers understand that a poem is to be read for its message. Means that uh, we need to read before about the poems before we get the message. Okay, and the next is uh, that this message is hidden in the poem. Okay, sometimes the message of the poem is hidden in between of the sentences or the words in the poems that's made by the writers. So it's like an old it's look like an old poetry because a writers like Alan Poe, for examples, or Shakespeare's, they make the aim of their literature or poetry or poems, they almost keep their message, their purpose, and what are they want to talking about, hidden in their literature. Okay, they almost hidden the message in the words or in the sentence of their uh, literature, such as poems or maybe so story. And the last is the message is to be found by treating the world. Since the message is to be found by treating the world. Okay, so uh, learnings about poem or poetry, I sit against that is a little difficult for you because what we are to talking is about we need to talking how to write or to make a poems, and the second how to read a poem, and the last is how to analyze a poem, and also how to be a good listener of a poem. So there are 4 points that we have to learn about poems. So I'm so sorry because I think it's not enough times for talking about poems. So I teach you or I tell you learnings about poems just in a generally. So I'm so sorry because I can say or I can tell you more specifically talking about learnings about poem, how to write a good poem, how to understand poem, or how to translate into Bahasa Indonesia about a poem, or how to analyze about poems. I think it's not as easy as you think. Okay, so I say that it needs more for a vocational school. This is needs more 3 months to understand about poem. So I'm sorry because our video just talking about poems in generally. Okay, so this is our last videos in this semester because this is the last Materi for all my students. So I hope you to watch more to review our videos for the semester because you need to prepare yourselves for your examinations. Okay, thank you for your attention. See you again, and assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.